So good afternoon. After having a talk on how to look beautiful, how to look smart and younger, this is something which would be very close to the heart of all the people who are running laboratories because they are on this side of the table, and all the physicians and the clinicians who have a complaint that the labs are not giving them results which are expected of. So for that, I would just like to add on to few things about pre-analytical variables which can impact the laboratory results. So what is the purpose of a laboratory investigation? This is an era of evidence-based medicine. And now in our country also, with the Clinical Establishment Act coming, you all are knowing that every patient we say is going to take us to court. So we need to have evidence for whatever management is being done. And that evidence-based medicine, gone are the days when it used to be you feel the pulse and you give the disease. Nobody is going to listen to that. So that is why the role of labs has increased. It is for diagnosis of the disease, prognosis of the disease, management of dosage, everything you need the lab investigations. And of those lab investigations, the investigations coming from the biochemical lab are covering 60 to 70% of your requirements. So before I move further, let's talk about the various steps, how a test report comes. So there is a clinical question. You have seen a patient, a clinical question comes, and with that you decide, you make a requirement to form the evidence you need. Patient sample is taken, it is transported to the lab. In the lab, it is received, analysis is done, quality control maintained, the report is made, interpreted, and it is conveyed as a biochemical answer. So what you see is, you are seeing in this, what happens is that in the lab, what you have seen, there are three phases. The pre-analytical phase, in which it was decided what is the test to be done. Then the specimen is collected, it is transported, comes the analytical phase when it is processed, and the post-analytical when the results are given to you. So it has been seen that what are the errors commonly seen. Pre-analytical errors are 46 to 68%. On an average, they say that if you get a wrong report or a report with which you cannot interpret what is the clinical condition, 60% causes are pre-analytical. Only 7 to 13% are analytical. That means the process which is going to analyze that analyte. And again, the post-analytical or the transcriptional errors, they go up to 40%. So you see how important it is to know about the pre-analytical variables. Because earlier the labs were being managed by just technicians. Now it is not the technicians. It is postgraduate doctors who are managing the labs. So that is why they are realizing what is the importance of pre-analytical variables. So what is the implication of errors? It's better to not to have any result than to have a bad result. Because if the errors are made in the period prior to the analysis, it may influence the quality of the final result, and it will compromise your diagnosis and treatment of the patient. So the more steps are involved in the process, more likely there will be the errors which will be committed. So pre-analytical processes, the clinical question may be wrong. You are thinking of something, and most of the time when we are sitting in a tertiary care hospital, the clinician has thought of some probable diagnosis, and the results show something else, when it is not going with the clinical question, the first thing is doesn't come up in your mind is that should I think of something else? The first response is you can also think गलत ही देती है, इस लैब का तो यही हाल है. So you have to be very clear about the clinical question and not just order the battery of tests because it has to be ordered. And now, because the era is coming where most of the people are coming with insurance, most of the people are having some cards, so those people in insurance will not return you that money if they feel that it is not fitting into your clinical question. Then the error comes in patient identification. And these errors are very common, very, very common, especially in the IPDs. Because what is happening? Leave aside the corona days. With the patient, you will get 10 attendants. And most of the time, I also remember when we were house surgeons, you would always forget who is the patient. The patient would be sitting on the chair or on the side bed, and somebody else would be lying on the bed. So you have to ask at that time that कि तुसी मरीज हो कि कोई और मरीज है. Then the sampling techniques, the test collection procedures, and specimen transport, that becomes very, very important. These days, what are the trends going on? You have national level labs which are taking samples at a remote place and then transporting them to their hub. The hub and spokes models have come. So what is happening there, whether the specimen is being transported properly at that time. Once, I being a NABL assessor, somebody in my city only, he approached me. He said, you have given accreditation to XYZ lab, but have you seen their collection center? The doctor had gone to give his own sample, and he said, how will the sample be kept overnight because you're I start eating at 9 o'clock, finish at 10 o'clock, and then I say it will be 2 hours after 10. No, my metabolism has started the moment I started eating at 9 o'clock. And there are diurnal variations. The specimens are affected by the time of the day. And most important of these, cortisol, you all know. We always know that there are spurts of cortisol and we always get dual levels done. Iron, which actually nobody takes care. But these days, because of the anemia panels, you want to see the serum iron levels. And if you are doing iron levels in the morning and you are doing it in the evening, the same patient will give you different values. Similarly, TSH. The TSH found in the morning is slightly higher than what you find it in the evening samples. So, phlebotomy, how it is, the sample is going to be drawn. Earlier, everybody used to feel anybody can draw a sample and you would keep even a 10th pass person as your phlebotomist, but which is not approved now. Because of the CEA also, there are laid down guidelines that you have to have people who have been trained for it. A person has to be at least a diploma in medical lab technology, because then he has had sufficient training how to take a blood sample. Because it looks like to be very simple. Besides giving 2 or 3 or 4 pricks, what is happening? There have been cases that people have given 2 or 3, 4 pricks and they have resulted in AV fistulas and they have landed up in the court. Then, if you are tying simply the tourniquet for a longer duration, it is going to alter your values. We have to be very, very careful, especially if you are getting the calcium levels estimated. If you are getting magnesium estimated. If you put the tourniquet for longer, the values are altered. So this error prevention can be done by education of your phlebotomist. We must keep on giving them continuing education, and we must keep on then assessing them. It's not that you just give this thing. If we do not take a test, it may be workplace-based assessment. You are observing them and seeing them how they are doing. Otherwise, the purpose is not served. As I was just joking with Dr. Karamveer also, that that you are sitting into any session, but there should be some post-session feedback also, so as to actually see if somebody has learned from it or not. And for patient identification, these days the barcode scanners have come, and which are very right. So then correct collection system and correct sample. We receive samples for arterial blood gases. In the corona period, ABG was becoming a very important test, because you always wanted to see your patients were on ventilators or they were on high flow oxygen. So you always wanted to see actually what is the oxygen saturation, and ABG had become a very important. So there also it is a problem is that one has to be very careful that you are drawing arterial blood. Okay, if because of some problem you could not draw arterial blood, you should mention it is venous blood, because the values are going to be different in arterial and venous blood, so it becomes difficult to diagnose for the patient. The tourniquet, I have already said, tourniquet should be released as soon as the needle is in the lumen of the vein and blood flow is established. Now, the era has come. It is not in the simple vials you are taking. You are getting the vacutainers, and we must take a proper collection tube for whatever sample we are taking. So I'll just give you an example. So red tops are the plain tubes. Everybody knows it is a plain tube. Now what is happening in this red top also, we are getting 2 varieties. One with the gel barrier and one without the gel barrier. The one with gel barrier, they say because it comes in contact with the gel, the blood clots earlier. But there are problems faced onto it. So we have to be very, very careful what investigation and what collection tube is to be taken. Similarly, you are taking an EDTA tube, which has got an anticoagulant in it, and you are sending. What happens is, and we catch our residents, they do it like this. He's drawing sample, and by mistake, he wants to get the serum electrolytes done, and he puts it in the EDTA vial and immediately withdraws, thinking nobody will come to know. But what the result is, because this EDTA is potassium EDTA, the potassium levels, they become very high. And the response from a senior will be, our lab ne ta galti result dena. How can a patient survive at 7 or 8 of potassium? So it was basically a pre-analytical variable. So we can have pre-analytical variables which are controllable and which are not controllable. Controllable are like the posture, prolonged bed rest, exercise. After a severe heavy exercise, you want to get the creatinine done, the creatinine levels will be high. Then physical training, you have to know about circadian rhythm, travel, diet, food, lifestyles. Wherever the uncontrollable are your age, sex, race, because the values are going to be different, altitude, the menstrual cycle. For the females, it is very important. There is going to be a variation with the menstrual cycle. And now, because whatever trend is coming up, most of the obstetricians, they are going into IVF. And when they are going into IVF, it is very important to know the hormonal levels. They have to decide the date when actually the fertilization is going to take place, when they are going to actually get the egg. And if you are doing your endometrial biopsies and you are sending it to us, also you are sending us the sample for the hormones and you are not mentioning the cycle, then there can be no interpretation. It will be just that a sample has come, it has been processed and some value has been given, but of no use to the patient. So this actually you all have an idea, so I won't be going to the detail. For your phlebotomists, they should know what is the order of draw, what is the volume of draw, what samples have to be mixed to prevent hemolysis. So I'll just rush through few case reports. We had a 44-year-old male who reported with jaundice, which was found to be hepatitis A. On day 2, there was an unexplained deviation of alkaline phosphatase, which became 5. Previous day was 432. So with the jaundice, 432 was going, and the next day, because they wanted to see what is the prognosis, it became very low. So everybody was confused, but in the same sample, it was good for us that they had asked for potassium, which came to be 15 millimoles. So previous day it was 4.5, and how is it possible that potassium has gone so high? So it was found, we investigated, and it was found that the sample had been taken in a potassium EDTA vial. So what happens is that EDTA chelates the magnesium and zinc, which is present in the blood, and they are required for the activity of alkaline phosphatase, and that interferes with the process with which we are doing. So when a fresh sample was taken, the fresh sample was that the patient had alkaline phosphatase of 400 and potassium came to 4.5. There was another patient with history of fever, and the hemoglobin fell from 10 to 7 in just one day, with no history of any bleeding or no history showing that there could have been any bleeding. So then what we decided was that on subsequent workup, it was found that initial sample was done from the arm where intravenous infusion was being given. So what had happened was that there was dilution of the sample, and that is why we had got a less hemoglobin. A 10-year-old boy on anti-epileptic treatment. The phenytoin levels, it is very important because as the child is increasing in age, you have to keep on increasing the dose. But then you have to keep in mind also that they have to go to school and they have to perform other activities, so we need to keep them at a therapeutic level. So it was found that his phenytoin was being regularly monitored, and it was coming as was expected, but the clinician had observed that whenever they sent his levels from the OPD, they were always on the lower side, and if he was admitted to regulate the dose, then the levels would come fine. So what actually was happening, as I told you, Both ways they were using the red top bottle, the plain vial for sending the serum sample. But in OPD they were using gel barrier bottle, whereas in the IPD it was plain vial. So we started looking up the literature, and there was immense literature available which told us that if blood is kept in contact with the gel barrier for a longer duration, then it gives you slightly lower results. Then that whatever drug you want to analyze, that gets chelated and you are not able to analyze it completely. So this becomes very important for so many other drugs which you are doing. And it's advisable that any time you want to do therapeutic drug monitoring, you must contact the lab and ask them if there are some special instructions to be given to the patient. Many a times it happens that you say you have to do it in the serum, we sent you sample in the morning, please estimate the drug level also. So, but it has been seen that over the time the drug level also get slightly reduced because still there are other cells present which are metabolizing it. This was a very important and a very interesting case. We had a 55-year-old man of CKD and he was on cyclosporin. He used to regularly come to the hospital for his dialysis. His sample was sent to us and marked as the trough sample. But when we would estimate it, the levels would be as high as for a peak level. Peak means that how much, once you give the drug, how much peak it reaches, and trough is the interval it is given. So they were trying to decrease the dose. Even if the dose was decreased, the trough levels would be very high. So when we started investigating and asking the patient time and again, so it turned out that it was not clear to the patient, and patient would take his cyclosporin and then come and give the sample. So what the doctor was wanting to know was the trough level, and what we were estimating was the peak level. So there was becoming a mismatch, and mismatch meant that the patient was not being treated properly. So my last word is that we have to pay close attention to the pre-analytical variables which are connected with blood collection, transportation, the request form, and information is very critical. Please don't think that why does the lab need this information. You must write a small brief history. I had once a sample coming to me, a request form which just had the name of the patient and the ward mentioned and no investigation. So I talked with the treating doctor and I told him, Doctor साहब अगर आप diagnosis लिख देते तो शायद मैं अपना दिमाग से कुछ test कर देती. Otherwise, I am not a magician that I will decide what investigations have to be done. So it is very critical that you must write down the diagnosis. It may be a provisional diagnosis and a little bit of clinical history. Because NTIs, as you know, non-thyroidal illness, even with small fever, you are going to have difference in the thyroid TSH levels. And then it happens, aapne tab ye report diya aur ab ye aa gaya. And the patients also now, they have become very smart. They will see the report, they will Google it, and they will try to come to diagnosis, and then they will say that this doctor has not diagnosed me properly. So this is always very critical for an accurate result in all the areas of clinical laboratory. Thank you very much.